Alright everyone, we start off today talking about how xenophobia really is a problem in the United States, but it's not a problem for the reasons that leftoids generally identify. They think that there's some sort of systemic hatred towards people of darker skin complexions than whatever group you're referring to. So it's not really a thing. Statistics don't really comport to it. Most people do not have, unless you count the microaggressions bullshit, the propagandistic leftoids keep stretching the definition of what bigotry is. Unless you're engaged in like manspreading or something like that, you're not going to fit in with the labels that you are given by leftoids. You're basically, you're playing their game when you even use their labels. Like they consider me to be, in some cases, a Nazi. I'm not sure how they came up with this, because they appear to be the ones burning books, wanting to centralize all industry, censor everyone who disagrees, and now we have the idea, which harkens back to another actual socialist of the 40s, contemporary to World War II period, FDR, and his extreme xenophobia towards Asians in the United States. It wasn't just an issue of, well, we're worried the Japanese might send spies. We have to put them in concentration camps. So wait, we'll call them internment camps. Totally different. It wasn't just that. FDR was an outright bigot and constantly telling jokes about Japanese people and shit. If you look at the propaganda from the era, Hitler is usually used to represent the Germans. It's one specific German. If you look at Asian propaganda against the Japanese and associated groups, what is it? It's just a regular Japanese soldier grunt with huge glasses, buck teeth, and the whole fucking 9 yards. Now, because people are incapable of learning from their mistakes in history, and have been whipped up into a retarded lemming-like frenzy by propaganda, now they think that Russians and Belarusians, regular people, some babushka in Russia, they're all evil. The idea, can you imagine, this is pertinent to the Boston Marathon decision. So the Boston Marathon has decided at the last minute to ban anyone from running in the marathon who's a Russian or Belarusian national. I'm not sure how many people that applies to, probably in the dozens. I'm thinking to myself, some persons from Russia residing in Boston or the United States in general, what do? They fucking run for a living. It's not even a competitive sport in the same way. This isn't like a team sports thing where the Russian government sends an envoy of athletes to go run in the Boston Marathon. This would apply broadly to just some random Russian who says, you know what, I'm going to run in the marathon. They own a donut shop or something. They're married to U.S. citizen, but they're a Russian citizen still, and they're awaiting their green card. They're not going to be allowed, you're not allowed to jog on that day on certain streets, specifically because of your national origin. I find it hilarious how many liberal bobbleheads actually support this. You are supporting actual bigotry. It's corporate and in this sense, it also involves government. It's quasi-fascistic. Now, before I get into more of this, my thoughts about this, because you can imagine if it weren't Russia invading Ukraine, it were Nigeria invading Cameroon or something like that. Keep in mind down below, if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment with links to other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind that I make exclusive material every day. It goes on those platforms. It does not go on YouTube. YouTube's algorithm already hates me. Today there will only be one exclusive because I do actually have to make a second video for YouTube. I've got a literary update. Now, as I mentioned, imagine that it weren't Vladimir Putin in Ukraine invading Ukraine and saying, well, your eastern region is separatist, and by the way, your nation's filled with Nazis, so we're going to denazify you and shit. Imagine that wasn't the case. Imagine if this was Nigeria invading Cameroon because some breakaway small tribal group is like, hey, we'd rather have the Nigerian government over us because we're part of the ethnic majority there, and there's this other group that doesn't represent us and they're in power. And Nigeria rolls in with the tanks, and civilians are killed, and towns are burned to the ground. And the world, by and large, and China would probably use it as an advantage diplomatically and get in the good graces, the world would condemn it. Also, in the case of Nigeria, and they haven't developed nukes, people would invade them. Harder with Russia because they're a nuclear state. That's why Finland is now apparently planning to try to join NATO. It's interesting times we live in. And here's the problem. If that were to happen, Do you think in a million years that, Airbnb, I think the other day, banned Russian and Belarusian nationals from renting properties there, from using their app and their service? If this were to happen to Nigerian residents or Nigerian Americans or something, would the left support it? I don't think so. I think this has to do partially with skin color. Random Russian national does not mean Putin. It does not mean a KGB agent, although it could be. That's more the case with people who come over from China, just so that we're aware. We had a dossier leaked last year that showed 3 million fucking spies had infiltrated every rung of Western civilization. I don't think there are 3 million Russian spies infiltrating the West. I think the number's probably a lot smaller than that. Some random Russian babushka, some old lady who fucking sells mushroom casserole or something, is probably not gung-ho on board and supporting the cause of Putin's war. The fact is that the decisions that have been made against Russians more broadly outside of the scope of normal sanctioning, number one, involve the influence of both government and business upon one another. They are at least quasi-fascistic. That's problem number one that I have. Number two, they're being used to extend even further than just the Russian and Belarusian nationals. Censorship is amping up on all ends, cross-platform on the entire internet right now, simply in the guise of fighting disinformation. Well, that's not really what it's about. It's about narrative control. Again, the liberals should know this from the Iraq War period, back when the Dixie Chicks were banned and shit like that, and people had free speech zones outside of political events, because we can't have antagonists showing the American people that our policies aren't all completely accepted by everyone. Anti-war demonstrators getting fucking pepper sprayed and shit like that. You'd think that we had learned from the last round of this shit. Again, they didn't have the open, wider internet broadly to censor, but TV, radio, music in general, recording artists, big thing, books, we have it again, and now they're branching out further. So that's another problem. The first problem is it's completely lunacy to suggest that the average... And number three, I'd say this. What impact does it have on Russia? Keeping a handful of Russian people out of the Boston Marathon is not going to help the war effort in Ukraine somehow. Sending tanks might help, sending missiles might help, sending money or supplies of some sort. Those help. Giving logistic aid helps. General sanctions on Russia pertinent to its military capabilities. Those help. This does not help. So, having again, Uber and these groups engaged in this kind of behavior, they can only use the excuse of attempting to help any sort of humanitarian or military effort. That's obviously not the real reason, because no sane person would believe that. They're just hoping to get more brand loyalty from the woke people, from the crowd of goofballs that will believe literally anything that they hear from CNN. I think that it's rather sad. The liberals, the leftoids' opinion has now finally come true. There was no racism problem in the United States until a couple of months ago. Now you got a big fucking problem. You've got an entire ethnic bloc that is being mistreated, even at the legal level, by the government supposedly representing their interests. By the leftoids who claim they love immigrants so much, but they don't want them to be able to run in a fucking marathon. It's completely off the chain. But these people lack self-awareness most of the time. Cognitive dissonance will kick in. 99% of them, even if you confront them with this basic, easily understood logical premise, what are you doing? It's obviously wrong. The historical equivalents, retroactively, all of the groups that support them disavow them completely. There's not a person in the fucking U.S. hardly who would say, oh yeah, I remember after 9/11, I was proudly anti-Muslim and anti-Arabic, and when I saw people in robes, I yelled at them. And nobody's going to say that they did that. Well, maybe Redneck Ralph or something like that, but 99.9% of Americans wouldn't. But if you were there, and I was, there were knee-jerk reactions with regards to Arab Americans, many of which were citizens. Born in the country and shit. They happen to have a hijab on, get oranges thrown at them and shit. I can remember that. I was there, and it was tolerated. People looked the other way. If the business owner was looking just a little bit less fondly on the dude in the turban that came into the shop, who happens to be a Sikh from Pakistan or something. He's actually from India, but he can't tell the fucking difference. That happened. It occurred, and these people, by and large, there was no punishment for it. There was no legal will to punish for it. Businesses were engaging, not in the same coordinated manner as this. Certainly, this is worse. This is much, much worse. And it's being tolerated by people who claim to be intelligent. Well, we have more college education than those libertarians and conservatives. By the way, the former, I'm not sure that's actually the case. If true intelligence will lead you to libertarianism, just saying. As a libertarian, I don't believe that a group of people, by and large, should be precluded from basic commerce, travel, etc., even going down a fucking public street one day out of the year because there happens to be a stupid marathon that they even canceled the other year. Who cares? It's not meaningful. It'd be one thing. I hate to make this argument because some people might take it the wrong way, think, well, Styx is not a libertarian at all. That's not what I'm saying. At the very least, though, if you're going to violate human rights or the Constitution or something, you should at least be able to propose a pragmatic explanation. It shouldn't be legally binding. You shouldn't be doing it. It shouldn't happen, and you're wrong. But at the very least, there's a reason for why you're wrong other than sheer malevolence or stupidity. There's no other reason for this kind of maneuver other than sheer malevolence and stupidity. I think that it's both blended together. That's about all. Peace out.